and see that.
All right.
Charger.
Is that on? Yeah.
To the stairs.
It's like two different angles. Which one's my
We're
good
on
side?
right here.
Wouldn't that be awful? Does anybody need anything? I'm gonna grab a coffee.
I think I'm good.
We just need to get that.
Actually, I have a cup of coffee. If you don't mind.
Oh, she's asking for things now.
You said, does anybody need anything? If you didn't need me, you shouldn't have offered.
He doesn't really mean that.
Nothing, I'll find just, yeah.
Just black?
Yeah.
So cream and sugar, black. Michael.
No,
I like
I'm
my
good.
coffee like I like my business
Low
partners.
maintenance.
Short.
Oh, shit.
That's all right. You only offended like 3,000 people. That's all right. Yeah, just say your name into the camera so they know. Just look right.
Is it live for real?
Oh, yeah.
This one is too.
Oh,
There we go.
he is a beautiful black man, and I love him.
You're making it worse.
No, I'm not.
Just so you know, it should be on the food show in about a week or two. Wonderful. You've already blown it.
Randazzo.
Yes. Is it really live right now?
Yeah, that one and that
Oh,
one.
Jesus Christ.
Is that one live?
Can I turn this slowly?
Yes. Please.
There you go. That's better.
You asked me here. You know who I am. You knew that it was going to be.
That's what people like. They like the before and after stuff too.
Yeah.
because
And
that's-
#1 chef, Columbus Underground named you #1 chef.
That's correct.
Is there another title I should be saying with that?
I don't know. I don't.
Okay.
top chef in charge.
No, I don't know. I'm really actually a little embarrassed about that. So
I know, but I think it's pretty amazing.
thank you.
That is very cool.
And you were on Food Network.
I was on the Food Network. Yeah,
I want to talk about that.
we can talk about it.
Cool.
Yeah, I've got stories.
Sweet.
Hey, you want to start?
Yeah, Randazzo.
Yes,
She kept asking me on the way here.
it's not that hard. It's
don't have
exactly how
short
it's spelled.
Randazzo.
Are you not good at phonics?
No, I'm terrible speller.
We're learning about
That's
a lot
oh my
about
gosh.
both of you ladies on
Yes, we are.
Facebook right now.
That's the only good thing I got out of that shitty.
And I grew up with an English teacher. You can
My
cuss
mom was an
now.
English teacher too.
Really? But
Yes.
when this comes on, no cussing.
When what comes on?
When
When
we're
we start.
recording.
Okay.
Well, I'm technically recording now, but
Yeah, that's the only good thing I got out of my I went to this really awful Christian school,
I did
and my
too.
mom, you did? Where'd you go?
Maranatha.
I went to Liberty
wow.
Christian.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it was awful. And my mom was like, I was complaining about how much trauma I got from that school. I'm not kidding you. And my mom was like, but you learn how to read really well from going there. And I was like, yeah, Mom. I would totally trade all the trauma and all the negative things that happened to me that made me question my identity for so long for the phonics.
For the reading.
Yes, it's definitely worth it.
There you go.
all right. So I'm gonna just get that a little closer,
Thank you.
and whenever you want to start, you are. Good to
Tell
go.
me when I can't cuss anymore.
Let's say
Starting-
from this point forward.
Okay.
Right, yeah, I'm saying 3 seconds. You ready?
Randazzo.
Yeah, totally.
All right. In 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to HER614. I'm Michael Cheney, and I have got the #1 chef in Columbus with me, at least based on Columbus Underground. That's what they say about you, Katie Randazzo. Thank you for joining me on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
So, how's it going in the restaurant business?
The restaurant business is really hard.
It's hard.
It's a lot of work. Thank you very much.
Welcome on the radio.
When I set out to open Ambrose and Eve,
Yes.
everyone's told me how difficult and hard it was opening a restaurant. And nothing can actually prepare you for how difficult it actually is. You can get all the advice, you can read all the books and do all the study and the research in the back and get all the information you need, but it's really hard.
It's really difficult.
Yeah. But it's good also, it's we're doing really well. We've been open for about a year now.
Yes.
We got named one of the best new restaurants, and then made the top 10 restaurant list for Columbus Monthly as well.
That's amazing. And we're talking about Ambrose and Eve, and this is the restaurant that you own with you have a business partner in this. Where is this restaurant located?
It's 716 South High Street, right on the cusp of German Village in the Brewery District.
Yes.
It's next to Antiques on High. A really great bar, Lawbird, just opened up over there. So it's really starting to become this really phenomenal district. Also, Tremont's there, which is a classic.
It is a great area.
Yeah.
There's a lot happening over there.
There's a lot.
And you're a perfect fit for that area. Now, I will say, when I think about owning a restaurant or a bar or something like that, It seems like really cool.
Yeah.
So my real question for you is, does it feel cool? Like, what's it like to own a restaurant?
It feels cool. Like when I walk into the space, it's like, oh man, like I did it, right?
Yes.
That's been my goal since I was in 7th grade to have my own restaurant. My first concept was called Silverwares because I would steal silverware from other restaurants. Sorry. And then I was going to open it up and have mid-smashing silverware on all the tables and like a comedy lounge and stuff. Clearly I've developed since then.
But you have like all along, you've had this in your mind.
Yeah.
To where you have been like kind of creating these concepts all along the way.
Correct.
And then you landed on the Ambrose and Eve concept,
Mm-hmm.
as well as some others like Preston's, which we'll get into. So how did you tell us about the concept of Ambrose and Eve and how you have built that out?
Well, I knew that I wanted to build a place that made people feel comfortable and like they were at home. And so a lot of the food that we do at Ambrose and Eve also circles around classic dishes that you might find at your grandmother's house or your mother's house or something that reminds you of your childhood. And then we elevate that with modern techniques and new ingredients. But actually, when Matt and I were working on the concept for Ambrose and Eve, we talked about how we want people to feel in the space, and the steps of service far before, probably like 7 months before we ever talked about the food. We wanted to have people feel like they were in a fine dining establishment as far as the steps of service go, but not have the food be intimidating or overwhelming. Something people could wrap their heads around.
Yes.
Like it looked familiar, they understood it.
Because ultimately you're wanting to create this experience, and the food is part of the experience, which is why it took you. Just so everybody knows, you just took a drink of really hot coffee.
Yes.
And I think it burnt your mouth.
A little bit.
But you're creating this experience for people, and the food is part of the experience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The one thing I thought was really cool, and I didn't know this when I first walked into your restaurant, but can you talk about the picture you have behind the bar?
Oh, yeah. So there's this really beautiful oil painting of my grandparents right behind the bar. Another really fun fact is that the logo, the Ambrose and Eve, the and Eve part in the logo is my grandmother's actual handwriting.
Really?
So our design, yeah, it's really cool. Our design team, when we were building the restaurant, I had found her old recipe box, which I found out recently that my dad and his siblings called the poison box.
Interesting.
She was not a very good cook, apparently. She was not a
Right.
very good cook, apparently.
Really? So you
So-
didn't get your skill from her? let's just
Absolutely
say.
not, no. But they took samples of her handwriting and put it into the logo.
That is
And
so cool.
It's really cool. It's very touching. It was really thoughtful,
And-
which incorporates into like how we at the restaurant like really pay attention to all the details, and
Right, well,
even
I mean,
down to the logo.
Yeah, even you've got the picture of your grandparents, you've got the handwriting, like that's like from the heart.
Absolutely. And there's tons of family photos. We also have, right when you walk in, a board with all of our staff and employees have their baby pictures up there. We really want people to feel like they're at home when they walk in and give them a unique experience that you don't find anywhere else in this city.
So what's the best dish or the most popular dish at Ambrose and Eve?
Well, we change the menu every 3 to 6 weeks. We don't change it entirely, but we take stuff off that maybe isn't in season anymore, or that we're just kind of bored with, or we have a new idea, we want to try something out. So all the dishes rotate. So there are some things that haven't come off since we opened, but we are becoming very well known for our fried chicken dinner.
Yes.
You can get chicken for 1, chicken for 2, or chicken for 4, and then it comes with an array of sides, and the sides rotate. But right now we're doing mac and cheese, which is Matt's mom's recipe, mashed potatoes, green beans, and biscuits, which are quite phenomenal.
I
as
will
well.
say everything that you mentioned is phenomenal because I've had it all. And I was blown away. I've been there once recently, and I mean, I was blown away by the food. And I if there's a misconception about Ambrose and Eve, what is it, and what would you say to people that don't understand what you're doing there?
I think people might get the idea that it's too fancy, right? Like, but it's not.
No.
We have really simple dishes on the menu right now, like ants on a log, which is one of my favorite things. It was one of my favorite snacks as a kid. And then we just elevated that by using some burrata cheese, which is my favorite cheese. It's like if ricotta and mozzarella had a baby. That's what burrata
That's
cheese would
it.
be. So it's like ricotta and then it's like wrapped.
Interesting.
And so that represents like the cream cheese. And then we use nigella seeds, which are onion seeds. So that represents like the raisins or the ants, you know. And we use braised celery with it as well. So I think people might think that we might be like they might consider us fancy.
Maybe too fancy.
But we're not. It's there's a lot of really great dishes on the menu. Like we did adult SpaghettiOs for a long time.
Really?
We did a play on beefaroni, like Chef Boyardee
Sure.
beefaroni. So like it's not, and it's really comfortable in there too, and it's casual, and we want everyone to feel welcomed. You can come in a 3-piece suit if you want, or you can come in ripped jeans and a t-shirt. We don't care. We just want you to come in and have a good time.
Absolutely.
And have this amazing experience.
Yeah, and I will tell you, the atmosphere is very relaxing, and it also seems like when I was there, like this is like a perfect like date night type of place,
Absolutely,
right? Like
yeah.
you're gonna get excellent food, you're going to have like a great experience, but you can come in jeans and a t-shirt if you want,
Yeah.
or if you want to dress up, it's a perfect atmosphere for that as well.
Yeah, we actually had a couple who I've known for a long time, but now they've become really great regulars. Came in after they got married at the courthouse in their wedding dress and
Okay.
their suit. They wanted to celebrate getting married at Ambrose and Eve, and we want like, if you have something to celebrate, we want you to do it with
That's
us.
awesome.
And if we know that you're coming in to celebrate, we're gonna make it extra special for you.
You're gonna take care of them.
Absolutely. I mean, we take care of everybody, but like we have little touches that we do for special occasions, which I think is something that sets us apart
I
from
love
everybody
that.
else.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about you. And I know you don't like to talk about yourself.
Yes.
You're like one of the most humble people. You don't even want to acknowledge that you've been named #1 chef in Columbus, which I think is pretty awesome and telling about who you are. But you were on Food Network at one point.
I was.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I was on this show called Cutthroat Kitchen with Alton Brown, who's a food genius. I'm so excited that his show Good Eats is coming back, by the way. And on that show, it was all food truck chefs that I was competing with. And they, like, the way that show works is like, okay, so you're going to make me a breakfast sandwich. And then, like, you have time to go into the pantry. So, like, when you start, they show you the pantry, and then they, like, before the show starts, and then they pull you out, and then they change everything on you. So when you think you know where everything is, so it becomes hectic and chaotic in there.
So when you're watching the show and it seems like you're kind of doing things on the fly, you really are doing things on the fly.
Absolutely, yeah. And so, like, while you're making this food, they would introduce sabotages that you would have to, like, bid or auction for and purchase. And then you sabotage the other chefs. It, like, slows them down or, like, makes them not be able to perform as well. And the sabotage that was given to me was I had to put everything on a remote control car. Like, if I wanted to use a spoon, I would have to put it on the car and drive it around and into these parking spots before I was allowed to use it.
Wow.
It was annoying. I unfortunately got kicked off first,
Okay.
but I don't think it was justified.
You don't think it was justified?
Well,
I mean,
'cause,
you
you
did
know-
have to use a remote control car.
Right. Well, this other guy who's a big dude had to lay down on, like, those things that you put underneath cars when you're doing oil
Yes.
changes, and this really, really tiny table, and he had to do all his prep work on his back on this thing. Oh,
So
yeah.
when you think about the things that you've accomplished, you know, you've got Ambrose and Eve, you've got Preston's, which we're going to jump into here in a minute. You've had a food truck, you've you know, gotten some recognition, you've been on Food Network. Does it feel like you've accomplished something?
It does, yeah. Yeah, it does. It's a lot of hard work. You know, like everything that I've accomplished, I didn't come by it easily. There's a lot of blood, sweat, tears, literal blood. Sorry, not in the food, but
Right.
you know, you cut yourself, you burn yourself. It's emotionally exhausting. It can be lonely sometimes because, you know, I'm at work like 17 hours a day. Sometimes don't get to go do stuff with my friends and my family. So you can really like get inside your head. It's really important to take care of your mental health, as well as your physical health in this industry, which is great to see this huge push around sobriety in restaurants right now. And I really respect that that's happening. But yeah, I do feel accomplished, but I also feel it in my bones because
Yes.
it's been a long journey.
Right. So what can you talk more about the sobriety around restaurant? Why has the restaurant industry seemed to kind of be plagued with drugs and alcohol?
Because it's stressful, you're right. Like it's stressful, and like if you're in the service industry, you're a special human, right? Like it's a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of mental strength, and we're all a little. I was gonna say a curse word. I caught myself. We're all a little messed up in the head,
Sure.
and so it's really easy at the end of the night to like go have a drink with your coworkers. You have all this cash in your hand. You just wait at
Absolutely.
tables. You have all this money. And it's really easy to just go like have a few drinks with your coworkers afterwards because you're also a family, right? Like
Sure.
you're all going through it together. You're bonded. No one understands what you're going through except for some of your parts around you sometimes. So it's really easy to like go hang out and like have a drink and then have a shot and then have more and more and more.
Right.
It's a natural progression.
Yeah, no, you've captured that really well because I don't think many of us even consider that.
Yeah.
Another thing that you said, and you're kind of helping me dispel the perception that business owners don't really necessarily have to do much.
That's not true.
And what I always tell people, actually, we are doing everything, oftentimes every single job.
Absolutely.
Until, of course, you get to maybe a certain point where your responsibilities within your business change. But you just said that sometimes you're working 17 hours a day. I know you're still working in the restaurants, and people might be surprised to pop in and see you in
Actually
there running
cooking
the
on
show.
the line, yeah.
Yeah, so kind of talk about that. Why is it important that you are there, and what does that look like for someone that's really trying to get these businesses, these restaurants off the ground?
First of all, don't open a restaurant. It's crazy. But if you do want to open a restaurant and you've never worked in a restaurant, go work in a restaurant first. That's my sound advice. Because it seems cool, and it is cool, and it's a lot of fun, but also it's a lot of work. And if you've never done it before, you don't know what you're doing, then you're going to run into a lot of problems. I even knew what I was doing and didn't know what I was doing all at the same time.
Exactly.
So I've been-
and you've worked in
Restaurants since I was 16,
and you've been
22 years.
You were in a restaurant at one point that was nominated for a James Beard Award, right?
Yeah,
So you have experience.
correct.
And even though you've got all this experience, you've been to culinary school, it's still difficult.
It's really hard.
And you're the one there, you're running the show. Why is that important to you?
Well, so first of all, it's the first year we're open, and I want to make sure things are correct and right, and the quality is there, and it's consistent. But also, it's good for your staff to see that you're willing to do anything that you ask them to do. I think it gains a level of respect, and it's important that your staff respects you. Because if they don't, they're not going to do what you ask them to do. I mean, usually they don't do what you ask them to do anyways, because people are jerks. Also it comes down to like money too, right? Like it's the first year of business, you have a lot of expenses that you're paying off from opening construction, so maybe you can't afford to have that cook on the line for a few months.
Right.
Maybe you need to cut costs. So you're working on the line, and it's really hot back there.
So one way you're kind of demonstrating, say, good leadership skills is by showing your folks that you're right there next to them, you're willing to do what they're doing.
I'm in the trenches with you, man. We're in this together.
Yeah.
You know?
Is there another way that you can say, hey, if you want to be a good leader, here's another, avenue I think you need to focus on? Can you give any thoughts out there for someone that's trying to build a business and has a team? What else would you say is important?
Listen to your staff, right? Make sure that you're giving them the best tools to succeed. Pay attention. Be able to recognize if they are feeling overwhelmed or overworked. Be able to tell the signs so you can talk to them and figure out a plan of action
Sure.
to help them get through what's going on. Be kind and compassionate, but also be firm, right? You don't want anyone to walk over you. If they're walking over you, they're not respecting you. And in kitchens, there needs to be a lot of respect because, I've been doing this for a long time. I have systems and methods that I know work. Matt has systems and methods that he knows
Sure.
works. And we do things for a reason. It's not just like, hey, put this in the oven at 450 for 15 minutes because I'm guessing. It's just because I've done this for so long and there's a system to it. And I will teach you. I will answer all your questions. I want you to come work for me, and when you're done working for me, be able to go open your own spot if you want to. It's really interesting in the culinary world because not necessarily in Columbus, but like in New York and Portland and DC and Chicago, there's all these like really phenomenal chefs that all have their proteges that come underneath them.
Yes.
And like even I'm a part of that, right? So the chef I worked for in New York, he worked for this woman named April Bloomfield, who's a genius, and she's kind of a awful human, but she's a genius.
Yes.
And then she worked for another guy. So like by proxy, you know, I'm considered one of her proteges. So like I want all these people to come in and learn and grow and develop and get all the knowledge they can from me and Matt. So when they're ready to go out into the world and maybe start their own place or run one of our next concepts, they can do it.
So you're developing people.
Yeah.
And I see some businesses or some leaders take the opposite approach, which I don't agree with. And it's like you have to hold on to all of your skills, all of your secrets, so to speak, and not pass that along.
That's stupid.
I agree. And how do
There's enough for everybody.
There is, especially like women, right?
Absolutely.
So one thing that I feel is becoming more and more acceptable is just women helping women succeed. It's like, I feel like at one point that was like, no, you have to hold the person down because you can't rise above unless that person.
We need to lift each other up.
Absolutely.
We absolutely do. Actually, almost my entire kitchen staff right now is female, which is really cool. We have to lift each other up. We have to help each other. Like, this world is stupid right now. And it's really depressing, and it's gross. And we can't get any better if we don't help other people.
I could not agree with you more. Let's talk about Preston's. What is Preston's, and where is it located?
Preston's is a concept Matt and I accidentally created. When we were opening Ambrose and Eve, our intention was to do a pop-up a month. And for people who don't know what a pop-up is when you go and you take over a restaurant space or any space and essentially like do a restaurant for a night in there. And so we were going to do a pop-up a month while we were developing Ambrose to like work on recipes and keep people engaged. And the second one we did was a junk food pop-up because we both really, really love junk food.
I'm sorry I missed that one.
Oh, the junk food pop-up?
Yeah, junk food.
Well, it's Preston's
I'm trying
now.
to quit.
I'm addicted to Taco Bell. It's really bad. And that's another misconception about chefs, that we eat all these fancy meals at home.
You don't.
I have like frozen pizzas and like,
You don't cook at home.
No, I really don't.
And that's because you're spending all your time cooking,
for
right?
everybody
it's
else,
just like,
yeah.
I don't want to paint.
Let me put a like hot pocket in the microwave. I don't even have a microwave actually. Yeah, you don't like to paint. I understand.
I mean, I like to paint, but I don't want to go paint my house after I've been talking about paint
do you
all day.
hire somebody else to do it?
I bring the guys in to paint. And my house has been painted like 10 times.
I love that.
So in case you're just tuning in right now, I'm talking with Katie Randazzo of Ambrose and Eve and Preston's, and she is telling us what Preston's is and where it's located, and then we're about to talk about how she's in the process of opening up a new location. So Preston's is a pop-up, essentially.
Yeah, well, so like it started as a pop-up, and then it did so well that the place, it was originally inside of Three Sheets, which no longer exists. And so it did so well, they asked us to stay, and that was right down the street from where Ambrose and Eve is now. Like, oh, this is a good idea, we're in the neighborhood. People are going to like get to know us and like what our quality of food is. But then it like kind of took off, and originally it was called Ambrose and Eve Burger Shack.
Oh, okay.
And then it got confusing. So we decided to rebrand and run with this concept because Matt and I believe that Preston's has the capability of being a national brand. And Preston's it's a hamburger joint. Like now we have 2 specialty burgers that we do. But originally it was just like one burger. That's a smash style. We locally source our beef from the butcher and grocer. It comes from New Creation Farms, which is within a 100-mile radius of Columbus. We make everything from scratch except for the buns, and we make all the sauces. We make the pickles. We're brining the pork belly. We're like doing everything.
Wow, you make your own pickles?
Yeah, I love pickles.
I love pickles.
You haven't had them? They're really. Have you had a Preston's burger?
I haven't.
What's wrong with you?
I'm trying to.
You should have done your research.
I'm working on my fitness.
I'm working on fitting that sandwich in your mouth.
And I'm trying to eat healthy, new year.
You can get it without the
new
bun.
me.
All right.
Okay, I will do a Preston's burger with extra pickles, no bun.
Okay.
Is that
It's
suitable?
like a burger salad.
Okay, perfect. Burger salad.
And if you want to come to Preston's, you can find it inside of Woodlands Tavern or Woodlands Backyard. And then we also have a food truck, which was originally the Holla food truck. And then I closed that business about a little over a year ago, only because it was doing really well, but I didn't want to manage 3 businesses.
Sure.
I just It was too
two's
much.
enough.
Yeah. And we do have plans to bring Holla back. So we have the food truck, which does a brewery rotation. We're at Seven Sun on Wednesdays and Sundays, Antiques on High on Saturday, and Parsons North Brewing on Fridays.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. So now you're opening a brick and mortar Preston's.
Correct.
And how difficult is that?
Well, we don't have the money for it yet. We're in the process of doing fundraising. We have a couple businesses and people that we've been talking to that's looking really promising. So we have the space. We've signed a letter of intent, which will be on Cherry Street, right by the courthouse and the main bar, which is a great location. I think we'll do excellent lunch business there. But we can't move on anything yet or start breaking ground on anything yet until we get the funding. And we've been working on getting funding for about 6 months.
So is it difficult to get funding? I've never had to ask for funding, really.
Yeah, well, it's hard asking people for money, right?
It's really uncomfortable, isn't it?
It's really uncomfortable. Like, hey, I'm doing this thing, and I think it's really got a lot of potential. Do you want to give me like $1 million?
Because you're really like kind of having to open yourself up, be vulnerable.
And then everyone's looking through your finances and your history, and it's like, yeah, it's very vulnerable.
It is. So.
And what if it doesn't work? And then someone gave you all this money, and then it doesn't work. And then you feel bad,
Sure. So like that.
It's going to work. I'm not worried about it.
Exactly. Because
Yeah.
I know you like fully believe in this.
Yeah.
But even though you fully believe in what you're doing, you still have those conversations of what if it doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you get that out of your mind so that you
don't.
can show up to the meeting and ask for the money?
I mean, it's always back there. It's always lingering. And the part about things not working that's the hardest for me is what will happen to my staff. I think part of the reason that we work as hard as we do is because we have 60 people to take care of,
You're absolutely right.
But yeah, that's like when we go into these meetings, like that's always nagging in the back of your head. But, I think that if you don't think about it not working, then you're naive and you can't make a proper plan. So it's good to have a little bit of doubt,
Sure.
right?
And it kind of puts that pressure on and kind of helps you understand the gravity of what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Even when you think about, I've got 60 people that you're essentially responsible for, right? You're helping provide them a job that's helping them take care of their family or go to school or whatever they're doing. And I often find that knowing I've got that responsibility is what helps me make the tough decisions.
Absolutely.
When you've got the blood, sweat, and tears coming, it's what helps you see through whatever challenge you're going through.
And as a business owner, I'm sure you understand this as well. Like, making those hard decisions is really hard.
It is, and it's stressful. And
yeah, it's like, oh my God, like, I have to let this person go. They did X, Y, Z, or they're not performing well, or,
sure.
I have stories.
We'll save that for next show.
Okay.
Here's what I really want to know. If someone was interested in learning more about Preston's and maybe becoming, an investor in this project, what do they do?
Well, you can call me. So Matt and I recently teamed up with two other people, and we started a hospitality group called Muse. One of those people is Letha from Bake Me Happy, who's a wonderful human.
Yes, we love her.
She's great. And another gentleman named Reed, who actually lives in Austin. So the four of us together have worked on a pitch deck.
Nice.
Reed did a majority of that work, which I really appreciate. And so when we think someone might be interested in Preston's, we send all that information to them. They can look through. It's got like our branding, projections in it, where we like to see ourselves in like 5 years.
Sure.
And they can see all those things, and then they can make the decision on whether or not they want to ask for more information or sit down or dig into our financials, which is really hard. And so it just depends on their level of interest.
So how does someone contact you, or who do they reach out to? Do you have an email address?
I do have an email address.
I mean, if you want to put your digits out there, go for it.
Dude, I've had the same cell phone number since I was 18. I don't mind putting my number out there.
Okay, well,
and it's really easy to find. Like, you can look up Paula or Preston's or whatever, and my cell phone number is plastered everywhere. So,
okay.
But you can email at prestonsbirdjoint@gmail.com. I would prefer not to give out my personal email address because I get so much spam already.
Sure.
Also, you can like us on Instagram or Facebook, and you can reach out to us on those platforms as well.
Great. My last question for you is, do you still love this?
I do.
I mean, I can tell by talking to you that you do, even though it's difficult, but you love it.
Yeah. Do you still love painting?
The actual art of painting. What I love now is the reach and the outcome of our projects, right? Like,
Yeah.
I believe like what we're doing, we're changing people's lives through paint. And I have to imagine in some way you probably think that you have a big impact on people's lives too.
Yeah. I mean, for example, there's a gentleman that started working for us, and this is why we do what we do. He started working for us, and when he came to us, he was homeless. And now he has an apartment, and he's doing really well. And, like, that's, like, those things are, like, what gives me the drive to keep coming in and, like, doing the hustle every day.
That is a perfect place to end this. Katie Randazzo, #1 chef in Columbus, according to Columbus Underground. I believe it. Thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Yes.
Good job. Good job.